We've all experienced that night. You know, the one where you wake up at 3 in the morning, you look at the clock, you toss, you turn, you toss a little more. On today's episode, we're going to look at that phenomenon, learn a little more about it, and hopefully learn some ways to keep it from affecting us as often as it does. I'm Jay, and this is Somnilopod. Welcome back, everybody. I have to chuckle every time I use the word phenomenon. I am flashing back to my college days. My friends and I, inevitably, whenever someone would say phenomenon, it would be followed up with do 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 do, and it would launch this entire Sesame Street vibe. So here it is, 30 years later, and I still find it funny. But you know what's not funny? Waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning is not funny. We've talked about insomnia in other episodes. Specifically, we talked about COVID-somnia, which is a relatively new phenomenon that we have gotten to experience over the past year and a half or so. But I want to break down insomnia just a little bit more. There are different types of insomnia that can affect each of us. Sleep onset insomnia, which is the difficulty getting to sleep, and sleep maintenance insomnia, which is the difficulty of waking up a little earlier than you anticipate and not being able to get back to sleep. Had a listener question from Jan in Indiana, and Jan asks what that is and why it happens. So I already had an episode of sleep maintenance insomnia on my show list, so I decided to go ahead and move that up in the order of things since she was curious. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, sleep maintenance insomnia. Now, as I've mentioned, it is the difficulty of waking up and not being able to get back to sleep, whether it is a half an hour early, 2 hours early, 4 hours early. It can vary in degree from person to person, and it can also vary in frequency. It isn't something that necessarily happens to us every single night. Although when you're going through a string of nights, it feels like it's happening every single night. Insomnia in and of itself can be frustrating. Some estimates state that about 30% of the adult population in the United States suffer from some type of insomnia. Some of those estimates go all the way up to 60%. Now, it can vary from population to population. Some of the risk factors that are more likely, and the people that are more likely to have episodes of insomnia are us older adults. We tend to have a little more insomnia. Also, women. Unfortunately, ladies, you get to bear the brunt of the insomnia game there. There are other mental conditions that can affect insomnia, especially depression and anxiety-related disorders. They can both play a part in it as well. So we've sort of have an idea of what it is. It's the difficulty of getting back to sleep. Now, why is it? Why is it happening to us? Well, think back. Think back to the last time this happened to you. And I'll use myself as an example, like I mentioned in the introduction. I wake up, I'm wide awake. I just don't feel like I'm going to be able to get back to sleep. So I will literally look at the clock and do the math. I'll think, okay, I've got 2.5 hours left before my alarm goes off. That's enough time for me to get at least two solid hours of sleep. If I go to sleep right now, why aren't I asleep? And then I begin to feel anxious about it. And I'm such a sleep nerd that I actually break it down even more. I'll think, okay, I can get through 2 REM cycles before I have to wake up again. So, so unfortunately, that is my experience more often than I care to enjoy. But your experience may be similar. Your experience may be a little bit different. Some patients will wake up and just be awake for a couple of hours and still be able to get back to sleep. It really depends on when that arousal or that awakening occurs throughout the night. So what's to do when this happens? Well, we've mentioned in the past that our bodies are really good at remembering habits. We like our routine, and our internal clock, our circadian rhythm, it likes its routine as well. So when you start to have an episode of insomnia, then it disrupts that routine. And what you do about it really sort of sets the tone for whether or not it continues. So for example, if you lay in bed and you toss and you turn until, from 3 until 5:30 when the alarm goes off, your body remembers that. Your brain's going to remember that. It's going to think, okay, laying in bed is what we do when we're frustrated, and that's just sort of how it is. Pointed out in the past, what we need to try to isolate the bedroom for are sleeping, intimacy, and those times when you're ill. So for example, if you wake up and you feel like you can't get back to sleep, get out of bed. 20 minutes is usually the earmark, 20 to 25 minutes. So if you laid there and you just don't feel like you can get back to sleep, get out of bed, get out of the bedroom, go into the other room. You can watch a little bit of TV. You can read a little bit of a magazine or a book. You want to try to avoid anything too stimulating. You don't necessarily want to start playing a video game because those can be stimulating. Do some light housework, maybe load the dishwasher, do some dusting if you feel like your house is kind of dusty. But something that's not necessarily going to feel too stimulating to your body. Now, I did mention watching television. Try to avoid electronic devices if you can. And the reason I point that out is because some of the types of light can affect our ability to get back to sleep with regard to the blue lights that television screens, computer screens will emit. That's not to say that what you're experiencing is so intense that it will throw your circadian rhythm out of whack. But again, if it becomes a habit that your body's used to being exposed to this light at night, then it will affect your ability to get back to sleep. So if it's going to be a short episode, maybe a half an hour episode of Golden Girls or something along those lines, sure. If it helps you get back to sleep, great. But try not to make it too big a habit. Some other things that we recommend is to keep your sleep environment cold. 65 degrees is one of the recommendations for keeping your thermostat set. The reason we do that is because our body needs to reduce our core body temperature, and our brain needs to cool down a little bit. So it needs to cool down a couple of degrees. So 65 degrees is what is recommended. I personally like to have it a little bit colder, but colder is better than warmer. Now, you may be one of those people that wakes up sweating in the middle of the night. There is more than likely a reason to that. If it is because your thermostat is too high, you can fix that. Also, though, there are some sleep disorders that can affect your body temperature. For example, sleep apnea. You're actually physically working to breathe while you're sleeping. So you'll sweat a lot more. Ladies, if you're going through menopause, you may wake up having hot flashes. So those are things that can be treated. You want to try to address any external phenomenon and talk to your doctor about that. Remove those things from your plate, and hopefully your sleep will get a little bit better. Now, a lot of patients will, if they feel anxious before they go to bed, or just as if they've had a few nights of maintenance insomnia and they just are really tired of it, they may try some over-the-counter sleeping medications. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some sleep physicians, they sort of cycle through the use of sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not so good. You really don't want to depend on anything to help you get to sleep or stay asleep for more than about 2 weeks at a time. Short-term use of hypnotic medication, of sleeping pills, is not necessarily a bad thing, depending upon the physician's philosophy toward it. So the occasional over-the-counter sleep aid, NyQuil, Benadryl, things like that, won't necessarily cause too much of a problem. If it helps you break the cycle of the insomnia, then great, give it a try. If it's something that you feel you need to speak with your physician about, if it continues for more than 2 weeks at a time, then yes, there are some things that they can do to try to help. One of the things, and one of the really effective methods to treat both sleep onset and sleep maintenance insomnia, is the use of what we call cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI. And it is a method that is relatively new with regard to the field of sleep medicine, that helps to retrain your mind to cope with the insomnia itself. A lot of times insomnia involves hyperactivity or hyper vigilance. And in some patients who just have a propensity toward that, cognitive behavioral therapy will teach you methods and techniques to be able to sort of disassociate from that hyperactivity. So for example, the use of mindfulness, of simply being aware of your environment and what's happening in it, how you feel, the physical sensation of your body. Those are some of the types of things that they will help you learn to focus on. One very simple technique that I've used in the past, and I know other patients have benefited from it as well, is something called progressive relaxation. So you're laying there, you're awake, you can't get back to sleep, you're starting to get a little frustrated. I want you to focus on your toes. Start at the bottom of your body. Focus on your toes. Maybe wiggle them a little bit. Do they feel tense? Are they cold? Are they hot? Is the fabric of the sheet, is that bothering you? Focus on your toes, and then move that sensation or that area of focus up to the arch of your foot. Does it feel comfortable? Is there anything irritating about it? Does it feel tense? If you notice that it is a little tense, then make it more tense. Wiggle your toes, tense your foot up, and then relax it. And then try it again. Tense and relax. Notice the difference between the way that feels. Next, we move up to the ankle. If your ankle is at an odd angle, reposition your foot. Does your ankle feel sore for some reason? Go ahead and flex your foot. Tense it and relax it. Now do this all the way up your body to the top of your head. One of the things that I have always found is that when I do this myself, when I get to my shoulders, my neck, and my face, that's where I carry a lot of my tension. Usually, by the time I have done this a couple of times, I don't even remember where I fall off to sleep, but it usually is very effective for me to just help me focus on something other than the fact that I'm not sleeping. Those are some of the types of techniques that physicians will teach, or that therapists will teach with cognitive behavioral therapy. So do some research. There are a lot of really good resources online. There are actually services that provide cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia that you can subscribe to. Check out some YouTube channels as well. That exercise that I sort of started with you is called progressive relaxation. Look some of that stuff up. You may find that is very helpful for you. Some people will use other types of methods of relaxation, and whatever works, go for it. If that helps to break that chain of insomnia for you, then by all means, keep at it. I hope this has been informative for you. As always, I do really want to hear from you. So please send me questions, comments, recommendations for episodes. You can contact me at j@somnilopod.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you are listening through one of the major podcast services, please subscribe and give me some stars. I hope that you like me enough to give me several stars, but I don't want to force the fact. As always, I do hope that until we talk next time, you get some really good sleep and take care of yourself. Bye-bye.